And we're back. Welcome back to the Premier League prediction series, where once again I have to start by saying a massive thank you to all of you guys for the third European week running. It has been our most successful week on the channel, our most views, most subscriptions, most likes and most comments. I cannot ask for more from you guys. So again, a massive thank you for another amazing European week. But once again, our attentions now must return to Premier League football for game week 16. We're almost at the halfway mark of this Premier League season now. So if you haven't done so already, please do consider dropping a like on this video if you enjoy the Premier League predictions as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Next week is all about the League Cup. Then it's Premiership over the course of the Christmas period, and then European football returns again in the new year. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any of the new videos with notifications turned on. And now let's look ahead to this week's Premier League action by taking a look at the season scores, which have been ruined by the Everton-Liverpool game being called off, meaning we're no longer on a round number. It's 149 games played now, and we only got 4 right last week, which means we're just above 50% with 75 out of 149 and 12 correct scores. However, that was salvaged by a pretty damn good week in Europe. We were well over 50% from our European predictions this week across all 3 competitions with 5 correct scores as well. So our season tally is nearly 400 out of 700 with 43 correct scores. But without any further ado, as always, 10 Premier League fixtures. Although I say as always, it was started off with 10 and now it's only 9 last week. But hopefully it is 10 Premier League fixtures this week. And we start off straight at 3 o'clock. There is no early kickoff on Saturday because there is a late kickoff on Sunday instead. So we'll start off with the first 3 o'clock kickoff, which sees third place Arsenal unbeaten in their last 7, taking on an Everton side who obviously did not play last week, but were able to stay in 15th place and are still coming into this off the back of their 4-0 win over Wolves by not playing Liverpool. For Arsenal, they are unbeaten in their last 7, which does include, of course, dropping points to Fulham last weekend, but then bouncing back with a very good 3-0 win over Monaco in midweek. What's also worth noting is that Arsenal have won all of their last 3 matches against Everton, which of course includes both Premier League games last season. Arsenal, though, will be missing Declan Rice in this one. He is suspended. And again, as always, we will await the press conference to hear about the fitness of both Gabriel and Calafiori as Arsenal look to get their backline back to full strength. Going into this, Everton actually have no fresh injury concerns or have any suspensions going into it. So, considering that they've had the week off as well, they could actually be in a really good state to challenge this one. And look, it's a battle between the 2 best sides on set pieces so far this season. So, you would expect there to be at least 1 goal from a set piece at some point in this match. But for me, I've still got to go for Arsenal, especially at home. I'm going for a 3-0 victory to the Gunners. That then takes us to the other side that got a weekend off. They didn't get the week off because they played in midweek. That is, of course, Liverpool, who are taking on Fulham. Fulham, of course, the side that did get that draw against Arsenal last week, which has seen them move up to 10th. Liverpool, by not playing, had their lead at the top of the table cut to just 4 points. And after another poor performance in midweek against Girona, only winning through a penalty and an incredible man-of-the-match performance from a returning Alisson in goal, Arne Slot very, very unhappy with Liverpool's performance against Girona. And when you consider that that was actually off the back of the poor performance against Newcastle, they might be coming into this one against a very good Fulham side a little bit shaky. Going into it, both teams have suspensions. McAllister is suspended for Liverpool, whereas Calvin Bassey and Tom Cairney are both suspended for Fulham. But also critically for Fulham, Joachim Andersen is injured as well. So with Andersen and Bassey both missing, they won't have either of their first choice centre-backs available for them. Liverpool won both fixtures last season and knocked Fulham out of the EFL Cup last season as well. So there's a lot of things going in favour of the side from Anfield in this one. And that is the side I am predicting to win. But I'm going to go for a 3-1 victory, my standard 3-1 victory to Liverpool. Yes, they have the most clean sheets in the league this season, but I still fancy Fulham to nick themselves at least 1 goal. But ultimately, I'm still expecting a Liverpool victory. That then takes us to Newcastle and Leicester, 12th versus 16th. Newcastle are now winless in all of their last 4, Whereas under Ruud van Nistelrooy, Leicester have had an unbeaten start to his reign after that incredible late comeback against Brighton last time out. However, they do have a mounting injury crisis starting to brew down at Leicester, which includes midfielder now Wilfred Ndidi added to that injury list. He is a massive key midfielder for them. And Boubacar Soumaré is going to be suspended for this one as well, which is another big loss for them in that midfield. When you consider the likes of Harry Winks are still injured, Ricardo Pereira is still injured, and a few others, it's a growing injury problem for Leicester, whereas Newcastle come into this with no fresh injury concerns. Obviously, they are still missing a couple of players, potentially Willock still out, and obviously the likes of Sven Botman still injured for a little while longer. But even though Newcastle haven't won their last 4, even though I think it could be a bit of a nervy St James's Park, I would expect them to get a result here. But I'm only going for a 2-1 victory to the home side. I think Leicester will score. They've looked good under Van Nistelrooy. Can they produce another good result away at Newcastle? From two sides that are very shaky to two sides that could not be in any worse form if they tried. Both of these sides have lost their last 3 games in the Premier League. Both of these sides are in the relegation zone, and both sides are 4 points from safety. So even a victory for either side in this match will see them remain in the relegation zone. The pressure, of course, is ever growing on Gary O'Neill, although if you watch any of his players' press conferences, the players are certainly backing the manager. Whether or not the board are going to continue to back the manager, with a lot of talk surrounding the West Brom manager and potentially the Luton Town manager going to Wolves. If this result doesn't go their way, this could be Gary O'Neill's last game in charge. Not the same amount of pressure on Kieran McKenna, although I think the fans are starting to get a little bit frustrated with how Ipswich are losing their matches. Again, letting a lead slip against Bournemouth last weekend. So we'll see what happens there. For me, I still think Wolves have to be considered the favourites for this. They do score a lot of goals, do Wolves, but it's their defence that keeps letting them down. Big loss for them in midfield, though. João Gomez is going to be suspended, and it looks like Sarabia will face a late fitness test to whether or not he'll be fit. Ipswich have no new injury concerns, but still the likes of Hurst and Tuanzebe are going to be unavailable for them. For me, though, I still think Wolves have to be considered the favourites at home. If they don't win here, I'd be surprised if Gary O'Neill keeps his job. But I am going for Wolves in this one. I'm going for 3-1. I nearly went for 3-2 because of how sloppy Wolves are at the back. But Ipswich are struggling to score goals themselves. So I'm balancing it out with a 3-1 victory to Wolves. Let's see what happens. The final game on Saturday, the late kickoff, sees 5th place Nottingham Forest taking on 6th place Aston Villa. Forest ahead of Aston Villa by just 1 goal in the Premier League table. But both sides are on 25 points from their first 15 and are just 2 points off Champions League football. And both sides are going to be full of confidence going into this one, with Forest winning last weekend away at Old Trafford and Villa now winning their last 3 games in a row. The only potential injury concern for either side going into this is the potential loss of Ollie Watkins to Aston Villa, who has picked up a knock and is doubtful. But we'll see what happens in the press conference regarding his fitness. But if only they had another really good striker in the club like John Duran, who could step in if Watkins is unavailable anyway. So I don't think it'd be too big a loss for Villa if Watkins is missing. And obviously Duran scored a great goal against RB Leipzig as well. With both sides full of confidence, with, to be honest, both sides playing some really good football. I think this is going to be a really tough one to call. And what's also worth noting is that Forest have not lost to Aston Villa at home since they got promoted back to the Premier League. So they're going to feel like they can get a result in this one. I don't think it's going to be an out-and-out win for Forest, though. I'm going for a 2-2 draw. I think it's going to be a really narrow game. I can see there being goals for both sides, but I just don't quite have enough faith to say Forest are going to win this with how good Villa have been in the last couple of weeks. That then takes us to Sunday, and it is Derby Day, with our first 3 matches to talk about on Sunday being derbies. And we start off with the M23 derby between Brighton and Hove Albion and Crystal Palace. Brighton currently sits 7th in the Premier League, but are winless in all of their last 4, whereas Palace, albeit being 17th, are actually unbeaten in their last 4, including that draw with Manchester City last week, albeit under controversial circumstances surrounding that Rico Lewis red card. Going into this, Brighton are going to be without Kadioglu, Adam Webster, and they face a late fitness test for Joel Veltman, although some reports are saying he is back. If he isn't, Tariq Lamptey had a pretty good game against Leicester last week anyway, but they still have some injury concerns at the back, do Brighton. Crystal Palace could potentially see a return to Adam Wharton in this one, although I think this game will be coming one game too soon for him. But they're playing well. Eza's back and playing well. Mateta's back and playing well. It could be an interesting one, this. Bizarrely, 5 of the last 8 matches between these two sides have ended in a 1-1 draw. 5 of the last 8, all 1-1 draws. But with Brighton winning this fixture 4-1 last season, with Brighton still a lot higher up the table than where they have been in previous years, I still think they're going to edge it as the home side. I'm going to go for a very, very narrow 2-1 win to Brighton. From the M23, we head to Manchester for the Manchester derby, where, look, the only news I can give you is Rico Lewis is suspended due to the dodgy red card against Palace. Stones, Akanji, Ake, Rodri and Oscar Bob are injured for Manchester City. Luke Shaw and Johnny Evans are injured for Manchester United. Outside of that, this honestly could be anything. United have lost their last 2 Premier League games. They were very, very bad against Victoria Pilsen last night and scraped a 2-1 victory away in the Czech Republic. City have won 1 in the last 9, got outclassed by Juventus, who just sat in, hit them on counters and put them away. So, honestly, I could sit here right now, make a really solid argument for a 0-0 draw, make a really solid argument for a 3-3 draw, make a really solid argument for a 3-0 victory to Manchester City, and a really solid argument for a 3-0 victory to Manchester United. Absolutely anything could happen in this match. My expectation would be that both sides score. It's just going to be a case of which side makes the least mistakes, which side capitalises the most, which players are more up for it. It is a Manchester derby. But it's just, honestly, no result would surprise me in this. Absolutely no result would surprise me in this. I expect Manchester City to win because they're the home side. So that's what I'm going for. But I'm going to go for 3-2. It was like 6-3 last year, wasn't it? Or a couple of years ago. So it just absolutely anything could happen here. I'm going for City. 3-2 to Manchester City. That then takes us to the final derby on Sunday, which sees second place Chelsea taking on 9th place Brentford. Chelsea have won all of their last 6 matches in a row in all competitions. They're playing some fantastic football under Enzo Maresca, no matter what 11 he puts out. Speaking of that 11, Pedro Neto is going to be suspended for this one, whereas Reece James and Wesley Fofana are both still injured. They've just got to hope that Mark Cucurella puts the right boots on so they can make sure they get the best result here. For Brentford, they're starting to get players back to full fitness, but a few of them aren't quite making it yet. There's some late fitness tests over the likes of Jensen and a couple of others. But obviously, as we know, Brentford have the best home record in the Premier League, but have the second worst away record. They are 19th on away form. Chelsea, on the other hand, rather bizarrely, are actually only 11th on home form, but have the best away form. So it's a shame this fixture's not being played at the G-Tech, because you would have the best home team against the best away team. But that's not the way this one's going to go. It's Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. I would expect them to get the win, especially at home. Although, since Brentford got promoted to the Premier League, Brentford have won every single match at Stamford Bridge, and Chelsea actually haven't beaten Brentford since the League Cup in 2021. So there's a little bit of mental going into this for Chelsea and Brentford. Brentford are going to fancy themselves to get another result. Again, I expect there to be a lot of goals. Every game involving Brentford involves a lot of goals. But I'm backing Chelsea in this one. I'm going for a 4-2 victory to Chelsea in that one. The final game on Sunday then is the game that I imagine should have been the early game on Saturday, but it's being played at 7 o'clock on Sunday night. It is Southampton taking on Spurs. 11th place Southampton taking on 11th place Tottenham taking on bottom club Southampton. Neither side has won any of their last 5 matches in all competitions. Spurs only drew again last night against a Rangers team where they played their full first team, with the exception of Werner for Kulusevski, but then Kulusevski came on and got the equaliser. So for at least 30 minutes, Spurs had their full first team lineup out against Rangers last night and could still only muster a draw. For Southampton, I mean, just look at this injury list. for both sides. It's an absolute mess. Both teams have suspensions. Both teams have a lot of injury concerns. A lot of them are doubtful, so a few of them could be back. Apparently, Christian Romero is back for Spurs, but I've only seen that in one report, so we'll see. The gamble on Van de Ven and Romero didn't work against Chelsea last week. They conceded 4, but that said, the last time Southampton played at home, they also played Chelsea, and they conceded 5. So, again, it's going to be an absolutely bizarre one, this. Southampton can't keep the ball straight at the back. They keep conceding goals by giving it away. Tottenham keep missing chances and are leaking chances themselves, but I just think Tottenham should, surely, against what has been the worst side in the Premier League so far this season, surely Tottenham get the result here. I'm going for a 2-0 victory to Spurs. And then for the second week running, West Ham will play on the Monday Night Football, playing for Mikel Antonio after that horrendous car crash, which will see him miss potentially up to an entire year out with a fractured leg. They now travel to Bournemouth this time, who currently sit 8th place in the Premier League table, playing some brilliant stuff under Iraola, and have won all of their last 3. But they have already lost to West Ham earlier on this season in the League Cup. In fact, West Ham are actually unbeaten in all of their last 7 matches against Bournemouth, which stretches back all the way to 2019. And both matches in this fixture last year, both at Bournemouth and at West Ham, ended in 1-1 draws. The key factor, I think, going into this match, though, is that West Ham are going to be without Emerson, their left-back. He is suspended. And with how effective Bournemouth have been down their right-hand side, with Semenyo, with Kluivert drifting over, with Evanilson coming in from that side, I think the loss of Emerson could be a real key loss for them. We'll see what they do. I imagine they'll probably put Wan-Bissaka at left-back and Sofal to right-back, but I still think that is where Bournemouth are going to have their joy in this one. I just think that is going to be the difference in this fixture. So I'm going to go for Bournemouth. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory for them. And that will be that for today's prediction video. As always, let me know all your thoughts down in the comments section below. Don't forget to check out the community page where we'll have the voting tool available for all 10 Premier League fixtures, so you can let me know who you think is going to win, lose or draw, and comment on each individual fixture over on the community page as well. Thank you very much for watching as always. Don't forget to drop a like if you haven't done so already. I'll be back with my post-match reaction to whatever happens in the chaos of the Manchester derby, and then it will be League Cup quarter-final predictions for you next week. So a final, thank you very much for watching again. I'll see you very soon.